I have a problem with this ship. It's not the low number of hard points, or its ability to handle heat when compared to the Dolphin, nor is it the ship's internal capacity when compared to other large ships. It's far simpler than that. It's the name, the Orca. Or rather how when writing this review it ruined the name of the Dolphin for me. Because this is the oldest design of Saud Kruger's current line of luxury space liners. The sort of ship that passengers will board when visiting the weird and the wonderful sights in the galaxy. Orcas, as in the animal, might be known on Earth as killer whales, but in fact they are just big dolphins. Which, the more I think about it, means that Saud Kruger calling the Dolphin a dolphin is the equivalent of Falcon de Lacy calling the Sidewinder Snake, and then naming all the other ships they make after individual snake species, cobra, viper, python. You get where I've gone with this. They shouldn't have called it the Dolphin, they should have called it the Bottlenose or the Spinner. So in reality my problem isn't with the Orca at all, it's with the Dolphin, but this is the ship that made me think about it. Rant aside, and before I start going off on an even longer tangent about ship names, this ship, the Orca, is stunningly good to look at. Like the Dolphin, it's got a largely smooth hull with no sharp edges. In fact, this ship looks good from pretty much any angle, and believe me, I've tried to make it look ugly. I love the almost minimalist engine configuration and the spacious cockpit. It's a ship that looks like it's been designed from the ground up with cruising in mind, and the standard white paint job with heavily tinted windows are a clear nod to its aquatic namesake. And whilst that's the same scheme they use on all of their ships, this is the one it looks best on. Even the heat sinks are sculpted to be flush with the hull. Say what you say about Saud Kruger, but they've got aesthetic design down to a T. Even the landing gear looks high-end without resorting to the stupid tiny stilts that Gutamaya put on some of their ships. When Saud Kruger released the Orca back in 3300, it was designed to fill a gap in the market, the luxury tourist segment. And they went full hog with it to start with, limiting what ship owners could put in the optional internal slots and ensuring that only their ships were able to equip luxury passenger cabins. They've since relaxed the rules around the optional internal slots, but luxury cabins are still only available to Saud Kruger ships, the Dolphin, Orca and Beluga. There is one touch I especially like about the Orca. When boosting, you can hear a chime beforehand, presumably to inform passengers that they need to secure themselves, although it doesn't really give them a huge amount of time to find somewhere to secure themselves. Only really enough time to grab something attached to the ship nearby if they're lucky. You might think that the design is reminiscent of Gutamaya designs, but once you get past the standard paint you realise that there isn't much similarity between the two manufacturers, although there is still a link. While Saud Kruger do design all of their ships and build some of them, they don't build all of them, instead licensing some manufacturing out to other shipyards, including the yards owned by and maintained by Gutamaya. Which probably explains why the Orca is so expensive for what you get, but then again it is a Saud Kruger ship and they're all expensive for what you get. I might change my opinion on that if I ever get to see what's inside a luxury cabin, but somehow I doubt that'll ever happen. Given that the whole ethos of this ship is getting people across the galaxy, you'd think that the range would be good, and you'd be absolutely right. With engineering and an FSD booster, you could be nudging 70 light years per jump on a lightweight build. And whilst you won't see that sort of range when loaded with passenger cabins, you can still get over 50 light years out of it while transporting 80 passengers. Although that's running an FSD booster with no fuel scoop, so you'll need to make sure you do frequent station stops or sacrifice some capacity for a fuel scoop. Plus, with the 32-ton tank that the Orca comes with by standard, you can do a few jumps without needing to top it off, although, as I've already mentioned, try and find room for a fuel scoop, even if you have the fuel rats on speed dial. It does lack the Dolphin's ability to scoop from a star and charge the FSD without dramatically overheating, so that's something you probably want to bear in mind. But as far as Supercruise goes, its handling isn't actually horrific. It's much better than other large ships such as the Anaconda or the Type 9. Speaking of handling, it handles surprisingly well. On paper and depending where you look, the handling isn't far off the abilities of an anaconda, which is bad. But in practice it feels significantly better, and that's using A-rated thrusters with no engineering. For a downside, as part of my travels I've made a few stops to catch up on my exobiology, and while the thrusters are fine for this sort of work, I think it's fair to say I'd rather have a smaller ship. Even on what appears to be fairly flat ground, it can take a while to land. Not something I've had a problem with in a smaller ship. I've also taken it both mining and trading. I've actually enjoyed mining in this one. It traverses a planetary ring nicely, and it's usually quick enough to get away if someone decides they want to pick a fight with you. You can't take all the mining toys with you. I've left the subsurface displacement missile behind this time around, but it's more than good enough for a little bit of core mining mixed with some strip mining on the side. The internal capacity is low for the size and cost of the ship. It's only able to take a few more tons than the Crate Phantom, and it's totally outclassed by the Crate Mark II, both of which are cheaper to buy, and they can both land on medium pads, which means that they can take visits to outposts when needed. But the Orca does still manage to look good while shuttling pods of bio-waste between systems. Then you have combat. There's no option to take a fighter along for the ride with this ship, and you only get 3 hardpoints, 1 large and 2 medium, and they're all bundled together under the ship. With this, it's easy for an enemy to evade you since they can just float above you while taking pot shots, and whilst the turn rate can surprise you, it's still vulnerable to small and medium ships like the Viper or FDL. Because of the placement, turrets won't help in this instance either. You'll have to keep rolling the ship around just to get a shot on target as it moves around you. And the shields aren't great either. That being said though, with the right hull enforcements and engineering, the Orca can soak up a good level of punishment, which will either let you get away, or if you've had a rough day, prepare for ramming speed and showing other ships just how committed you are to removing them from the galaxy. So you can make it work in light combat, but if I'm honest, it's not for me. At the same sort of budget as the Orca, I'd rather take my Crate Mark II. Hell, I'd rather take my Chieftain, and that's less than half the cost. But as I said, the Orca can get away from a lot of combat situations or dive in and still emerge victorious. So that's the Orca. Subjectively, Saud Kruger's best looking, if not biggest, luxury liner. It's, again, absolutely gorgeous. Like the Dolphin, if you're up for exploring the galaxy with a touch of style, then this is absolutely a contender. And despite its intended purpose, passengers are strictly an optional extra. It is nice that they pay you for the privilege of being carted off to some far off place. I mean, who doesn't like a little bit of money? But sometimes it's nice to enjoy the silence. Nobody asking you to redirect to another tourist attraction on a whim, or asking you to make a stop to pick up some uranium just to make their journey a little bit comfier. I feel like the Orca is a ship that I shouldn't like as much as I do. For everything it does, there's a cheaper ship that can do a better job. But I still really like this one, and for me, as always, that's the main thing. As always, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. Next ship review is likely to be the Keelback, but until then, take care, much love, and 07. Thank you.